Hey guys, GHZD here, back with another video. Today is something I haven't done in a while, and it is a how-to guide. Now, this is extremely specific, this kind of tutorial, and it might not apply to a lot of you, but I wanted to address an issue that people seem to have with electric pets in Tomb of the Ancients. Now, when pets were first released, the ability of electric was highly sought after. Having a pet with the heal, magic heal, electric combination was basically the ultimate pet that you could get in terms of abilities. People will debate whether or not it's good or not. They'll say, oh, electric pets screw up tombs. Why would you get one? It screws up tombs. Get a decoy or a savage instead. But at the end of the day, it's people's preferences, I guess, and electric overall probably has the highest variability in terms of its uses among your entire gameplay. With that in mind, you've also got to come to the realization that a lot more people will be having electric pets, and because of this probably should be addressed. Now, I wanted to make a guide on how to do the Tomb of the Ancients with an electric pet, because it is very doable, and it can be very clean as well. People automatically assume that because someone has a divine pet with electric, that they won't be able to control it. That most likely is not the case unless the person has never used electric before, or has just literally just rushed to divine status and hasn't really had the time to experience the differences in the electric ability ranges and stuff like that. I personally have had my pet for over a year now, so I do have a very strong understanding of how far the electric ability actually works and how often it does and what are the chances that it's going to do it, etc. And because of that, I'm able to control it a lot more in Tombs. And you'll see in the footage that I provide that I actually kind of don't even touch a single boss with the electric and still manage to get very good loot. People also assume that because you've got electric, you have to back out a lot more. And to an extent, that is true. But I think people kind of neglect the fact that DPS is not kind of on par with soulbound loot. As long as you hit the threshold, you're guaranteed a chance at the drop. So that's kind of irrelevant when you're talking about, oh, what if I don't get enough loot? And the reality is, this tutorial won't even apply to you if you're doing an FFA tomb. So if it's public tombs, or if a tomb that you're in has gone completely haywire by accident, it just basically only applies to the clean tombs where you've got like a nice group who's ready to kind of do it the right way. I know I haven't actually done a tutorial talking about the tomb itself and actually how to do it, but I'm a little bit hesitant because I think BikuriBox12 is doing a tomb guide, or he's planning on doing it, and he's been doing it for a while, so I kind of don't want to rush into that. So I thought this would probably be the best second option, but I hope this helps you guys, and let's just get straight into it. Once you've killed off the Sarks, it will be pretty much straight into the action. If you know how to tomb, you'll know to hit Bess, then Nut, then Jeb in that exact sequence. Not like one at a time, you got to kill them off and then go to the next one is what I'm saying. But with an electric pet, basically what you want to do is manage it and keep it on the outskirts of the tomb itself. Because during the attacking phases of the bosses, they usually stay within the center, and then when they transition to other phases, they start coming out. And if you're only attacking one, the other two stay sort of in the center of the room anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah. So basically keep your pet on the outskirts and kind of drag it. So when there's an enemy coming from behind, you kind of just move it down and you just keep it out of the way. You make big loop circles rather than direct linear kind of movements. If you can manage that technique, basically the pet's never going to touch the boss itself. And when you're circling, I know in a clean tomb, usually you would be following its pattern around, kind of like I'm doing here, but you would be a lot more in front of it. If you've got an electric pet, you can't do that anymore. I'm sorry, but you just can't. It doesn't work, especially if you've got a high electric level. Now, this also applies to lower level electric pets, like legendary and rare, if you have them, even common and uncommon. But just with those levels, the electric ability isn't as good. And most of the time, it is very hard not to avoid paralyzing something. And to an extent, people get really pissed off when you paralyze something and they're not expecting it. So the best way to avoid any kind of uncontrolled variables in the tomb, because the pet has a percentage chance of paralyzing, you can't actually know 100% certain whether or not it will paralyze. And a lot of the time, I actually use the paralyze to my advantage, and we paralyze Bess, and we all get a ton of damage in. Now, if you're in a call with the players that you're playing with, it'll help out a bunch. because you're like, all right, he's going to get paralyzed, guys, and then they go ham. Or you can just let everybody know that you've got a paralyzed pet and that you'll probably be paralyzing the boss that you're fighting. Now, it's recommended that you don't try and paralyze any of the other bosses whilst doing a tomb, because, you know, when they go past that threshold, they'll activate and start weakening everything. So that's why you don't attack other bosses. You only do damage on one boss at a time, because if you do damage on all of the bosses, they all activate and all start shooting. Because as you can see, none of the bosses, except for the one that we're fighting, are actually shooting at us. Even though there are a lot of bullets, you will most likely kind of take that into like, oh, maybe all of the bosses are shooting, but it's only one. Like, all of the bullets on the screen right now are only coming from Nut, and that is ridiculous. But yeah, you'll know if Geb is activated because there'll be a lot more damage. The blue one's paralyzed, and you just got to kind of avoid those. But always keep your pet on the outskirts of the tomb. If you just watch this, I guess you'll kind of just look at my technique, and paralyzing the tomb bosses doesn't need to be the end of the world. Something that you need to know though is if a tomb boss is paralyzed, there's a very, very high likelihood, if not 100%, that it will reset its rotation and go the other way around. So as you can see, Geb's coming towards me, he's rotating one way, but if he gets paralyzed, they'll rotate the other way when they get unparalyzed. So just be aware of that. It can kind of muddle your flow up a bit, and that's what people don't like about electric pets. It ruins the flow of the tomb. Without electric pets, you literally just keep running around in a circle and just dealing damage. But because you can paralyze Nut, it kind of keeps us safe in that one spot for a long period of time. You get all of your melees, if you've got them, to just absolutely decimate with damage. And then you just back out. I mean, just keep an eye on the other tomb bosses to make sure that they're not coming around. If they are coming around, you just back out with your pet again and just move them out of the way just to let them go past for that little bit of time. It doesn't matter if you unparalyze the boss because it just keeps rotating. It just follows that same pattern over and over again. So as you can see, we're in a 3-man tomb at the moment, and it is going quite well. I've got 2 out of 3 on the tomb, and we are killing the bosses off very quickly. Something you need to take into account with the last boss, this dude here, who is Geb. When you paralyze him, when he gets to his Nile artifact phase, the Nile artifacts, if he's paralyzed, will spawn directly on top of him, and if he's stunned as well, they'll also stack. So Nile artifacts are what will kill you in tombs a lot of the time if you're not careful. They do huge amounts of damage, and if you stand on top of them, it's just an instant death basically, so don't do it. Yeah, so just be aware of that. If you paralyze and stun combo, it does go a little bit savage. But it's not too bad. You can still keep your pet on the outskirts. I've done a lot of tombs with my pet, and we already knew that I was going to be paralyzing anyway, and the Huntress was paralyzing. And it's something that can be a good thing. You don't need to necessarily associate electric pets with a bad kind of vibe going on. I can understand that people were really hesitant to do tombs with electric pets back when they were first released. And I don't think it's actually so much of an issue anymore. People kind of have just accepted the fact that electric pets are in tombs now, and there's not real any way to do it. I mean, people have tomb pets where they just get another pet leveled up, and then they have no electric just for that function. But a lot of the time, people do not want to do that. They don't want to spend either money or time investing in another pet just to be able to do one dungeon. I can understand that it is a very profitable dungeon, and it is very good to get used to, but at the end of the day, you can't really listen to other people. If you get like kicked from a guild because you don't have another pet, it's kind of a dick move. Like, come on. I mean, seriously, it has happened before, and I know people have been kicked from a guild just because they had an electric pet in the tomb. And I can understand if they screwed up the tomb that they could get kicked, but I don't understand that just because they don't have another tomb pet and they don't know how to tomb, they get kicked. That's just a little bit weird. To me anyway, I don't know. But electric pets, if you know how to use them, are very manageable in tombs, and you can use the electric ability to your advantage if you want to get some solid hits in for everyone around in a safer environment. If you have a knight and you have a paralyzed pet, it's a really good combination, especially if everybody wants to just quickly get their soulbound in and get that life pot or white bag that you've been hunting for. And really, that is about it. If I had to give any major tips, I would say be careful when paralyzing Geb, because the Nile artifacts can stack or spawn right on top of you if you're not careful. If you have a knight, it's much more safe, because if you're not on a rogue like I am here, you won't be able to avoid the shots. So If something gets paralyzed, you're not on a rogue or a knight, you just got to wait it out. Wait for it to just unparalyze and return to its regular cycle and start doing damage. Keep your pet on the outskirts most of the time. You can do that by staying to the side of the boss rather than in front of the boss's movement. And if you follow those steps, most of the time your pet won't paralyze. Just be very, very, very exaggerated in your movements when you're trying to avoid the other bosses. You don't need to be as careful with the main boss that you're attacking, but if you're over exaggerated in your movements, like massive circles when you're trying to avoid Nut and Geb, if you're doing Beth, then you will avoid him with your pet and you won't screw up the tomb. If you, however, paralyze the boss that you're attacking, it's actually a lot better because, you know, you're actually supposed to be doing damage on that, and it's not as bad as paralyzing another boss. So with that in mind, I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. I hope I covered everything that you guys didn't really understand or had questions about it, I don't know. But if you are still confused about something, comment questions in the comment section. I'll try and answer them. And I hope you're having an awesome day. Like, comment, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.